Hello, this is Brandon with Be Loves the Love in another car conversation because where am I? In the car, waiting for my son to finish soccer practice. So I wanted to talk about one of my favorite books. It is called Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. If you don't know her, look her up. She's amazing. She is, was since she's passed. She is a Black fantasy writer, and her books are very prophetic. Like Parable of the Sower is a book that I read, if not every year, every other year. Some years the world is just too much like the world that she created in this book in the 1980s. She wrote it to be in 2024, 2025. So reading it now, when you're in the year that she's actually talking about, is very trippy, because she talks about this world where people are living in housing communities that are gated, and where you're having to go out with armed guards to work, where it's not even safe to go out to work because people are trying to kill you, where getting water is a challenge, where people have to be more self-sufficient, where you're using acorn flour because you can't afford regular flour because the crops are not owned by farmers anymore, they're owned by corporations, where you have businesses that instead of having workers that drive and fly in, there are now these compounds where, in essence, it's like migrant workers, where you work, you live where you work. They don't pay you in money. They pay you in company dollars. So in that way, if you ever wanted to leave, you would have no physical American dollars to go to share. And it's about this dystopian world that looks very much like similar to the world where we live in now. But what would you do if the world that you knew was no more, where you saw people just laying on the side of the street, zoned out on drugs, where people were being attacked and sexually assaulted, and you turn a blind eye because it could be a setup, where you're seeing an assault, but it could just be a setup for someone then to try to take your life, where you're distrustful of almost everything because you can't trust anybody except your immediate family. And the main character is a Black and Mexican woman, or young girl. She's 18, I believe, in the story. And she has been preparing for the moment where she's going to have to leave. So she has created a to-go kit, like a backpack that has seeds, that has extra clothes, that has a map. Because they also live in a world where cellular service is not reliable or is incredibly expensive, where she's got set aside a little bit of money, some water tablets to help purify the water, blankets, essential stuff, nothing that's not essential, because she is a very smart and practical girl. And there comes a time within this book where she has to grab that case and she's got to go. Like, it is one moment she's sleeping, the next moment her whole community is up in flames. And it gets you to think about, are you prepared? Now, I was a Girl Scout. My mother was my troop leader, and she always had a pack available in the house and in the car. So we were never one of those people to where we would want to stop at McDonald's or get something to eat. My mom was like, "Oh, we got food in the trunk." And she would have granola bars, she would have trail mix, there would always be water. And she gets on me now, and I'm remiss in that I have not done it. And every time I read this book and I talk about this book and I think about this book, I realize how unprepared I am for if things were to go left. How important it is to have those things available. Do you have cash? Because you can imagine if there's something were to happen and the financial system or the power grid were to go down, how are you going to get money? My mom used to tell me you should always have like $200 cash available. You should have it in your house. You should have some in your car. For me, having cash is dangerous because I find reasons to spend it. But it's a good practice to have. Just have some cash, like small bills, big bills, neat bills, clean bills, so that, if something were to happen, you could at least have a little something to hold you over until, prayerfully, thankfully, things get back up and running. So it's an amazing book, Parable of the Sower, Octavia Butler. Her second book is called Parable of the Talents. When I tell you I've had this book for years, it's been years. I have not read the book. I've maybe read like 4 or 5 chapters of the book because it is too much like 2016 during the leading up to and then during the Trump presidency, where, and I'm telling you, in the book, they talk about a person running for president who wants to make America great. She wrote this in the 1980s. So it's a little too real. And so maybe after this current election, I'll be able to read it. But I am afraid to read it because I don't want to read something that is either mirrors very closely to what we went through or can mirror very closely what we will experience if there's another presidency with that particular person. So it's on my list. I'm going to read it. I have it purchased. It's downloaded on my iPad. I can't read it yet. But anyway, Octavia Butler, Parable of the Sower, highly recommend her book. Her books in general. She's an amazingly gifted writer, and you can't go wrong with one of her books. But just be prepared to be a little freaked out. But other than that, hope you enjoy. Happy reading.